All right. I am going to call the meeting to order. Do y'all hear the thunder? Mm-hmm. Okay, first of all, is there anyone uncomfortable being on the call during the storm? Back in the day, my grandmother said, cut everything off, but I have an iPad, so I'm not connected to anything, so I feel safe. Mm-hmm. Everybody okay? Did any of y'all have a grandmother that made you cut everything off because the Lord was talking? Mm-hmm. We cut everything off. We cut everything off. All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order. And has everyone had the opportunity to look through the minutes and look for any corrections? If y'all see me look to the side, it's only because the lightning is getting my attention. Does anyone have any corrections or suggestions for the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 10, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes of May 10, 2020 as submitted, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the May 10 minutes are approved. Next, I want to thank y'all for working with the questionnaire. I thought it was pretty, I didn't want to reinvent anything that had already been done. So I really pulled from some of the stuff that you had already done and got the impediments that were listed, but I kind of figured we needed to narrow those down a little bit. And so did everyone get a copy of it and get a chance to review it? Anything shocking before we go through it? Any shockers? No? Okay. So first question dealt with serving on committees. One thing I did notice is that, well, we have a lot of committees. That's one thing I'll notice. But, and we didn't have anyone on the finance committee, but then we also had 6 people who weren't on committees at all. Does that sound about right to y'all? Okay. So I will tell you all that I do have some suggestions once we go through this of maybe a different committee structure based on the findings in here that may help us navigate a little bit better. But I want your input, of course. The next question was rank the top 5 impediments or challenges. Now, for Erica and I were looking through this, trying to figure it out. Oh, look, Erica, look at there. So one thing you have to look at, well, one of the things that I looked at was, first of all, the number of people who responded. And then you look at, where the ranking was, and then the percentage of the percent that it got. So the ones that I saw as, and y'all can correct me if I'm missing anything, but I saw that capital for developers, 53%, 8 people ranked it 1.5. So that sounds like that's, of all of these things, appears to be one of the most critical things. We also had further down, they ranked in the 3s, but a lot of people responded to. So 10 people said accessibility, affordability, safety of quality units. 9 people said having supportive services for residents of affordable housing. And then 8 people, education, addressing the stigma of affordable housing. Does all of that kind of sound consistent with you all?
Yes.
Now, y'all can't make me do all the talking because I don't like to talk.
These little thumbs up.
Okay. And then we had 7 people responded to zoning, where you can build, and high fees and taxes for affordable housing. And then we had not in my backyard with 6 people. So those are kind of what I would think that we should narrow our focus down to. Does that make sense? And those, I just said capital for, in order, it would be capital for developers, zoning, high fees and taxes for affordable housing. I will say that we have an entire committee, the Tax Modernization Committee, that's addressing that as well. Not in my backyard, I think is similar to addressing the stigma, or the same thing. And then accessibility, affordability, safety of units, and then having supportive services for residents of affordable housing. So our 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm still getting 6 though. We won't have 5. Is it okay to have 6, y'all?
Yes.
And am I leaving out something that someone thinks really should be listed? Like maybe sometimes these surveys don't get everything, but is there something that y'all think I haven't listed that should be listed? Erica, can you take the screen down? Because I can't see faces. Is there a way for me to see faces? Okay. Thank you.
Can you list one more time what you want for those 5? Because there is an issue that I know that we're going to be pushing forward that I think would be helpful for this task force.
Okay. Capital for developers. Do you have the sheet in front of you? Capital for developers, zoning, where you can build. I'm going to say high fees and taxes, but that's really going to be another committee. That we have a separate committee that will address that. Not in my backyard, which I believe I'm adding that to education and addressing the stigma. So that I think those are both the same. Accessibility, affordability, safety of quality units, and then having supportive services for residents of affordable housing. And again, that's just based on the rankings. And that's why I want to make sure, is there something else that we want to, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So the 5 would be capital, zoning, accessibility, supportive services, and education.
My question is, I do think that there's a need to be dealing with the eviction crisis, which is, keeping people in their existing homes. And I don't know if there's a way to fold that into one of the suggestions that you've made.
I think it will be, Sue, okay, once I get to the committee structure.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I'll just go ahead and tell y'all what I was kind of thinking, and it may help as a part of this discussion, changing the committee structure to maybe 2 committees. And they may have subs, but one that focuses purely on anything dealing with development and putting up buildings. That's one side, and we have some people that's how they think. They just, that's their thought. That's what they do day in and out. How do we get these buildings, these homes built? And then we have advocacy and accessibility issues, which is totally different than, it's more or less acknowledging the need and making sure people know the need, but it's not necessarily building the buildings. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Any comment, any thoughts on that kind of structure for our committees as opposed to the current ones?
I think you nailed it. Says the builder. Because it seems, I'm sorry, I'm in the car with the rain.
That's fair. Wait, hold on for a second. So
no, I didn't say that. Stop. I'm not driving. I'm not driving. I'm riding. But I think very much because we fall on both sides. And when I hear zoning, I think it's only pieces of zoning. So to have a committee based on zoning, you don't want to waste a committee. And to Sue's point, the eviction crisis wraps around into programs and services. So I think by bifurcating just two, you're going to see a natural, you're going to fall usually one way or the other. There are going to be some of us that kind of crisscross over.
Right.
So full support. Again, where's the thumbs up?
Any other thoughts on pros and cons of maybe changing the committee structure to development and then accessibility and advocacy? You are about, this is so cute. It just said you are about to raise your hand. I'm sorry, y'all. My iPad just said you're about to raise your hand. Julie Ann?
Yes. The only concern I have with that is when we're looking at the development side, and that's where we're considering zoning and fees and taxes and stuff, that really, it's going to be hard to take that out from NIMBY and advocacy, because I mean, like, you know, right now we've got a project that's been stalled for over a year because of NIMBY and the Board of Zoning Appeals deciding that we build ghettos. So I'm fighting in circuit court right now, and I would say that zoning and advocacy very much go together.
Okay. But and okay, I'm gonna make a point of that, because I guess what I'm
Does it depend on what you're advocating for? Whether you're advocating for or against the zoning?
Yeah, because, well, I think that there are going to be several different things, because I mean, an advocacy can be what, first of all, it's going to be decided by the next page, which is some of the things that we think we can do. But I'm assuming that the committee would decide what the appropriate side would be of the issue. But I don't think it prevents, maybe what it means is that zoning falls up under both. But I don't want to get that detailed in it. Are you suggesting that we need a separate committee for zoning?
No, what I'm suggesting is that we can't say that zoning's about development, it's also about advocacy.
Oh, okay.
You know, for 20 years, we've been advocating for inclusionary zoning, and we don't have it.
Right.
And we still don't have, for certain types of affordable housing with supportive services, we have absolutely no zoning where we can build that housing. We have to request an exception from BOZA and be subject to all the NIMBYism that exists here in Columbia. So I think it's got to be a part of both. Zoning has to be a part of both.
Yeah, I attended a meeting recently, and it always makes, I always enjoy telling my story when people are just so, we can't have that. And I was like, we wouldn't have had me, you know. And so, but I think that's a part of the, you know, the educational process. But, and I'm trying to think of, okay, I'm gonna come back to Sue's, because I got you on the mind too, but it looks like the 5 areas are, because that, to me, that would be accessibility. I'm just making sure I got my mind wrapped around it. So capital, zoning, accessibility, supportive services, and education. That's the NIMBY. Anybody have any heart issues on those 5? Okay. So the next thing that we looked at is, of course, we got all of those issues, but dear Lord, what can we do? Because we can't solve everything. So based on the report, we had 81% education and addressing the stigma of affordable housing and NIMBY, which I'm still combining the same thing. I should have listed it together. Capital for developers, streamlined governmental process for development, zoning, high fees and taxes for affordable housing, and an accessibility. So this is what I was thinking that we would do. Maybe choose the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't know if we need to choose those specifically for today, but just to know what they are as we look at what we can do. I think in the next one is what can we do in the next year? And Erica, can you take us to please identify your top 3 suggestions for the work plan. All right, inclusionary zoning, which has already been mentioned today. Training and equipping community navigators. Financing a housing trust fund, adopting universal accessibility and design standards. And this is my question, adopting universal accessibility and design standards. Would you all say that's more development or advocacy? No thoughts on that one?
I would say development.
Development.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tax modernization reform, mitigating evictions, accessible housing for individuals in prison, home builder education, vertical development, and then we didn't have anyone to say implementing Storytellers Bureau. So this is kind of what my thought process was, and I really need input, y'all. I was thinking that we look at our 2 committees and kind of take these tasks that are included here and divide them between the 2 committees. Any thoughts on that? Now y'all have to talk.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think that's a great idea. I think the problem was we had so many committees and so few people that it was hard to really have a critical mass. And if we have combined committees, we can bring issues to the committee, to the larger committee, and folks can work on things and not be as isolated. I think it'll help with us working together as a group.
Okay. And what I'm thinking too is, I mean, if they're different people who have different interests, then they would, because under development, there are 5 or 6 different things we're talking about. And under accessibility, there are 5 or 6 things that we're talking about. But that's kind of my thought process. Does anybody have any real heartburn about that?
No.
Okay, so Erica, I need you to take the screen off because, Anita?
Sorry, Ms. Hardburn. I just wanted to suggest that we not take on too much, because if you see how many people responded to the survey, maybe we'll be working with people here 10, 11, 12, and just inclusionary zoning would be a tremendous lift. So if we're developing a plan, that's one thing. But if we're going to be working on this stuff for the year coming up, I would just say we need to be pretty narrow in what we tackle. And we might not have decided that yet, but right. I don't think we're going to, do 15 things.
Well, and I agree, because what I would anticipate is, well, first of all, that's why I also sent you all the link to the Columbia Compass, because the city, in fact, our city staff, and I'm hoping I got some city staff folks. I don't know if I can see.
You do, yes, ma'am. Krista,
Okay.
Krista and Lee are here.
Okay. So the other part of it is some of these things, we have city staff that are working on these. And so we're trying to help fill the gaps, maybe. And so if y'all look through, I know that you all had the presentation before, but under the Columbia Compass, with respect to affordable housing, they've identified established incentives to encourage developers to construct affordable housing. And that has been assigned to our community development department. And so what I am imagining is we get some, I don't want us doing duplicate work. Does that make sense? So when I read through this, I asked staff, I said, so how do we complement or how do we help fill the gaps? But I will say a lot of times with our staff, and I think just to be honest, dealing with the flood and other emergencies, community development really gets pulled into that, you know what I'm saying? And so they haven't really had time to just work on the normal run of the mill, like get some of these other things passed. So is Krista, am I explaining my goal right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just having the committee support and that's the continued direction. Yeah, and Lee is putting a link to the document as well in the chat.
And so
and I will, if I may just piggyback onto the inclusionary zoning, that is going to take more than staff because it's going to require State House to act. So, there's going to need to be some advocacy on that part for sure.
Love it. Because I think we already have an ordinance or a draft ordinance, correct?
This was from a very long time ago, but it was determined that we are preempted from that we need, and there has been state legislation introduced a number of times, but it's not passed. So we need to have that, we need to get that passed.
And so what it sounds like to me is, and now this is the thing y'all have to educate me on, is on the state level, is there no desire to do it or there have been other priorities?
I think there have been, and I'll let anyone else jump in. I don't, but I think there's been a lobbying effort on the other side who's been a little bit more successful.
Yeah, it's had real trouble getting any traction because the interests that who have the resources are fighting it. So I think what we would have to do is both figure out as a committee, but also if there are others that we would want to coordinate with so that there can be more voices to support this. Marvin Pendarvis, I believe it was his bill each year.
Okay. And I'm sorry, so I'm just so y'all know, I'm not the most tech savvy and I see things coming up in the chat. So let me, I see Jeff and then I see Dylan 100%.
Right. So Councilwoman Herbert, Lee dropped the link to the Columbia Compass housing report and the previous presentation that was made to the task force. If Larry Moore responded that the item you were considering whether or not it was more of a development advocacy issue, he noted that it is a development issue, and he suggested that the priorities have been defined, so we should allocate the top 3 to 5 issues in order to get started.
Okay. And he's talking about under the top 3 suggestions. Is that what you're talking about, Jeff? Or Mr. Lattimore?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. you had 15 or so items. You have taken 3 to 5 to 6 of those items that seem to be clearly the majority of the respondents.
Right.
So to the points that have been made by others, such as Anita, there are certain ones that probably have to have very defined challenges and more stakeholders engaged to get progress, as you have noted. But some of the items that can be integrated into the existing committees, define those top three items for each of those new or redefined committees so that they have a target to get started in 2022 and 2023. I think once there's traction developed in the reorganization of the committees, then you begin to filter in some of the other supplemental subject matters that complement the defined tasks of those new subgroups, so that they're not overwhelmed in trying to then reprioritize another new group of challenges or tasks. So because there's abundance, I think through the use of the survey, you've kind of got a sense of phases of what are the top 3 items to develop in phase 1 and 2, and then how do those complement some of the other ancillary challenges that are recognized but still need more time and energy and resources to develop a clear structural strategic plan as it relates to very high-end, very difficult, multi-engaged, not only the city, the local, the county and state level, because we know that there are some aspects of what we're trying to engage with locally needs input from stakeholders to make, as inclusionary zoning being one subject, to move the needle on.
Okay. So how about this? I was thinking that maybe we set up the new committee structure, and then folks can decide which committee they want to be in based on their interests. And you all come back to us with like a specific goal, or do you think we should do that in a group setting? It just seems like a group setting would be a lot, but that's kind of what I was thinking. We have this information, we take these 2 committees, and you all have a subcommittee meeting in July, because we won't meet as a group in July. And then in August, we kind of have, this is what this committee thinks we can get done, and this is what this committee wants to get done. And then we can kind of fill in the gaps, like you were saying, going from there. Or do you want to go ahead and narrow those things down as a group right now?
This is Jennifer. Could we also have, I don't know that it needs to be a presentation, but maybe a briefing document related back to the Columbia Compass and the efforts of staff specifically, that maybe we could figure out how we could leverage the work of staff or supplement that kind of thing, so that we're not duplicating efforts as well.
Right. What I'll do is I'll try and get, just pull the specific parts that deal with affordable housing, because there are 5 areas in here: establish incentives, update the city's policy for affordable housing locational standards to align with community goals, leverage public land and develop and funding to develop affordable housing. And then there's one more, work with the regional partners to establish a regional housing land trust that can manage affordable units. So I think, because I want to make sure we'll assign a city staff person to both of the committees. And then what I also wanted to do was to get city staff. I didn't think we were going to have time, but we may have had time to do it today. But I do want you all to see currently, this is what city staff is working on. But if we have a city staff person that's working with the committee, it'll be someone that's knowledgeable to say, yeah, we've already done that. No, we haven't touched that. But I did touch with staff to make sure that these are all ongoing goals, and that they still need tons of work. I think the good thing about this committee is you can help us as the city keep this front of mind. Does that make sense? Because in the city, I declare it just depends on when we wake up that morning, what has happened. And, we get, no, we get pulled into different areas or different issues. But this task force, I kind of see you all as making sure that we are keeping this issue front of mind and actually delivering on our goals. And so I'm not expecting you all to do the heavy lifting, but I do expect y'all to help us with accountability, give us great ideas because of your backgrounds. You can give us some input. But I don't necessarily expect you all to have to, well, no, I'm sorry, except for 2 people. Let me check. 2 people said that they had all of the time in the world. Well, 13%. We had 17 people who responded. And 13% said, I have all the time in the world for the city. And so I want to, whoever those 2 people are, this might be 3 people if I did my numbers right. Y'all let me know offline who you are, and we'll kind of look at that. So any thoughts about proceeding that way?
I think it's a good idea. I think gives us a month to meet in committee and determine where we've been, where we're headed, and how to develop those 3 priorities and how to move forward on them. I think it's a great idea.
And do you all feel comfortable that it encompasses, because again, I think one of the main things I wanted to make sure was that the work you've done last year doesn't fall to the wayside. Like I want to feel like we're changing it, but we still are building on what you've already been doing. Is that fair to say?
I think when I look through what the priorities were, I think those priorities came from the presentations we heard from various people. Gotcha. I think they focused to the top. I think we heard what the problem was and we said, okay, here's the priorities as we saw them over the last year and a half. So yeah, I think they did.
Okay. And any heartburn about no heartburn about changing the committee structure? Because I don't want, somebody to say, Tina changed the committee structure. And y'all have to forgive me. I'm working on my formality for these meetings. Not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. So our next meeting is August 9th. And so ideally what the plan would be is that you all meet as a committee sometime in July, whenever you want to, but it gives you 2 months, pretty much 2 months to meet and kind of, narrow down some goals. And I'll make sure that you have the information from city staff. I did have one, something just popped in my head and I can't remember what it was. Oh, did you all want to sign up for committees today or do you want to let us know? Because we can do that now and Erica can have that in the minutes. Otherwise, we might get out a little bit early, and I know y'all don't want to get out early. I'm going to go through the list. I'm going to be on both committees. That's the easy one. Julie Ann, which committee do you want to work on?
I'm not certain yet.
Okay.
Can you be on both committees?
You can. Yeah, you definitely can. I just think that there are some people who are just more in line with one or the other, but there is nothing that prevents you from being on both.
Okay. I'd like to be on both. I think for our work, it's important for me to be on both. They're equally important. This is Yvonne, I'm sorry.
I got you. Now, Julianne, does that mean you want to be on both?
No. I'm just not certain which one I want to be yet.
Okay. What about you, Jeffrey?
The accessibility and advocacy.
Oh, and if y'all want to come up with jazzier names, that's perfectly fine. I'm not a jazzy person, but sometimes creatives can come up with cooler names. Jim, you're next on my screen.
I would choose development. I have a soft spot for trust funds, so that's where
Okay. And then Miss Jennifer.
Development, please.
Okay. And Miss Anita.
Probably the advocacy, but I'd love for you to send us stuff to finalize.
Okay. And Jeff.
Development, please.
And next is Miss Regina.
Accessibility and advocacy with a focus on supportive services.
Okay. Next, I have Miss Sue.
Advocacy.
Nah. I kind of figured that one. Miss Brenna. Good to see you, Brenna.
Thank you. The accessibility and advocacy.
Oh, and then Krista, I forgot I got more people. Dylan Gunnels.
I would prefer accessibility and advocacy, but willing to be flexible if we're getting a little heavy on that side.
Well, once we get all the numbers out, all the lists, then I'll see. Chris Zimmer, who are you with?
Truist Bank.
Okay, yes.
So I'll give you one guess. Development.
Well, see, I was trying to, that's why I was asking. I was like, wait, I'm trying to dig development. Miss Lila Anna. She is probably driving, I think she said. So I will check with her later. Gregory Sprouse.
Okay, I'll fall under development.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have Councilwoman Oddity Bustles joining us. Hey, Oddity.
Hello.
I don't have my, I'm not at my desk, so I don't have my full screen. And so I'm just seeing you. As y'all know, Dr. Bustles is over our homeless task force. And so she is joining us for information. And I think advocacy might be where she is. And she can also kind of give us updates on what's going on with that committee. Let me make sure that's okay. That's all I have. So if I do the numbers.
Since Anita's going to serve on the advocacy committee, I'll take development for Mercy's side.
Thank you.
Wait, who was that?
Councilwoman Herbert, quick question. It's Yvonne.
Yes.
Is it possible to have someone from my team join the task force to serve on one of the committees, the development in particular?
I will have to think about that. That is my honest answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Send me an email because I'm leaning towards a no, and I'm only going to tell you why. Because there have been a lot of recommendations, and I want to be consistent. The one thing that we do know that we need is more private developers.
Certainly.
At least one or two. But I don't want to just start expanding at this point. Not at this point, because I've gotten a lot of a lot of, I'm trying to be consistent.
I understand.
It's trying to be consistent.
I understand and respect that completely.
So Councilman Herbert, that was Ms. Avon who said that she would be on the development committee. So that gives you a total of 7 individuals, 8 with it, including you. And on accessibility and advocacy, I have a total of 8.
So Erica, thank you, because I was struggling with my numbers on my paper. So y'all, look, Dylan, it worked out perfectly. That worked out really good to have 8 and 8. And that's considering Ms. Bean is on, and you have Ms. Bean on too, right?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, y'all.
And we also have at least 3 people that I can think of that I'll have to reach out to see which committees they're going to serve on, but it'll probably still be balanced once we get the rest of the individuals set up on a committee.
Okay. And what I would suggest too is a part of that, and Eric, if you could make note that as the committees form, I have just said development, but if maybe just a 1 or 2 sentences of what we consider development, and then advocacy, what we consider advocacy. And that would be based on, who's in the group and the goals that y'all choose. On that note of private developers, did anyone on this committee have any recommendations? I realized I had some names, but I did not want to just pick people myself. I wanted to get input. Any input on some private developers? Miss Julianne, are you talking to us? Okay, we got you.
Okay. I recommended Kevin Connolly.
Okay.
He's a private developer that's done a good bit of affordable housing work.
Oh, if you have his contact information, would you email it to me, please? Thank you.
And it seems like I listened to the meetings. I haven't listened to them again, but as you all were having them, and I heard his name referred to a couple of times by Ms. Devine. So I think maybe I assumed he might have been a part of the committee. Any other recommendations?
This is Sue. I mean, I'm not on the development committee, but I'm thinking, do we want to have somebody from State Housing Finance Authority, since, all of this is about leveraging dollars and complicated tax abatements and everything? Maybe it would be good to see if there's somebody from the Housing Finance Authority who might want to be on this committee, just if all else, for advice and assistance.
Okay, I'll get, if there's no objection, I can ask, I have the interim chair, he works in my office. Maybe I'll ask him to appoint someone, because I want to make sure everything is, I'll ask him for a reference or a name for that. That's a good idea. All right, folks, would y'all be terribly disappointed if we didn't make it to a full hour? Well, are there any other issues or anything I'm not thinking about as far as our setup, so we know when our next big meeting is? You all, the committees can meet however they want to, but please let us know, because I wanna attend. Do you all think you need us to help you coordinate those dates? Maybe do like the doodle poll? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think for the first meeting, if you could set it up so we know when and where to be, and then we can carry on from there.
Okay. Do you all prefer for me just to set a meeting or send a doodle out? I think I'm saying it right, so that you all can choose when you want to meet.
I think doodle poll is always helpful, so we can try to make sure we get a critical mass from each group.
Okay. Erica, is that doable?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because y'all, I'm not tech savvy, so somebody has to. I'm gonna learn it before the end of the year, but I'm not too tech savvy. All right. Before we go, have I covered everything? Am I missing anything? I did want Dr. Bustles. Did you want to introduce yourself or say anything?
Well, I think most people here know me. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't have power, so I'm currently trying to preserve as much battery as possible before we come into City Hall. But as Councilman Herbert mentioned, we saw that there was a lot of parallels between some of the work that we will be doing around homelessness as well as affordable housing. And so really in hoping to make our committee and task force structures efficient, looking forward to working with you all and providing updates. I'll just briefly share that we had our first meeting in May, and that was really an opportunity, I think, for people to share their kind of perspectives and kind of set a mutual kind of foundation for how we're going to move our conversation forward. And so our next meeting, which is open to the public, and I encourage you all to attend if you are able to, will be two Wednesdays from now, June 29th, I believe, from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Busby Center. So we are meeting in person, and we're in the very initial stages. I know y'all have been meeting for a little bit, just really trying to figure out our goals and outcomes and how that kind of folds into current work and future work that needs to happen around helping and addressing, a very complex problem. So looking forward to working with you all. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Dr. Bustles. Sue?
I was wondering if this group could get anything that's been developed by the homeless group, because I think it would be important to be sharing visions and seeing where who's making decisions and all of that would be really helpful for all of us.
Yeah, what I can do is I'll forward along. We sent a series of reading material as well as the 2013 report. Thank you to Lila Anna for sharing that because there was homeless efforts from a task force perspective in 2013, and there were some recommendations that came out of there. So Erica, maybe we could forward that email of reading along to this committee as well so that they get an idea of kind of the information that we've had the task force review. Okay. And that I think also includes the notes from the last meeting.
Yes, ma'am. I'll send that this afternoon.
And Dr. Bustles, so you missed the beginning where I said back in the day, my grandmother said that when it was storming, she cut everything off. And it looks like your stuff got cut off. We've heard big booms up here. So you be careful and save your battery. Thank you all. If all hearts and minds are clear, we will help set up the committee meetings via Doodle. And we will send you information on where the city is with Columbia Compass, so you have that in hand in mind for your meetings. I'm going to try and attend the meetings when you have them. And you all choose how you want to meet, in person or in Zoom. And we will send you Dr. Bustle's information from the Homeless Task Force. And then I will contact it sounds like Erica volunteered, but we're going to make contact with some private developers so that we can make sure we have state housing and private developer to make sure we have all the people around the table that would be critical. Anything else? Well, by the way, last question, do y'all have a desire to meet in person? It's really up to you all.
I like the time efficiency of Zoom, so I would vote Zoom.
So is there anybody on here who is desperately seeking personal contact? maybe we'll schedule maybe quarterly or something, because I like efficiency too, but you do miss something with personal contact. Dylan Gunnels, I agree with Zoom for a group this size. So we will continue to monitor it, and maybe we can plan. I think we do need to at least sit down once every so often. So we'll consider that, but this is kind of efficient. All right, if all hearts, is there a motion to adjourn? If all hearts and minds are clear, I'm thinking I'm in church.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thanks you all. I look forward to seeing you on August 9th when we come back together as a big group again. Enjoy your summer. Not that I'm saying we're off for the summer, but y'all be careful and hopefully go on some vacations and have some fun. All right, bye-bye.